Okay, so what I want to show you how to do is build a shock mount system. So this is my Synology NAS. It's a DS220 Plus, and I have had it in service in the camper, in the travel trailer, and it's had some problems where the drives, even though they're SSDs, the drives are disconnecting. So I need to isolate it from the shock of the trailer. So what I've done is I purchased a couple of things. One is a bigger aluminum cookie sheet. It's a high gloss cookie sheet. It could be anything, but it is structural. It's got a lip. It's got just sort of nice build, and it was not expensive. And then I have a smaller cookie sheet, sort of the same sort of thing, where we've got rolled edges. And the intent will be to take springs, and I'll take this corner to this corner, this corner to this corner, and so this will sort of float above it. I'm going to do that with a set of springs that I've bought. This is an assortment, so I can kind of test and play. And then I will take some Velcro straps, and those Velcro straps will go around the DS220 to strap it to this plate. So basically the DS220 and this cookie sheet operate sort of as one unit. So it'll sit there and it'll be floating. Then when it's in the system or when it's in the trailer, it will dampen the amount of vibration and movement it sees. So the first step to doing this, to putting all those pieces together, is going to be to drill holes in the corners of the outer pan and the inner pan. So I've got 8 holes to drill, and I will do that and come back and we will put the springs in place. Okay, so I have my holes in, but what I need to do now is figure out how I'm going to get the NAS to be connected to the inner plate. So I need to do this prior to getting it mounted and the springs connected. And so what I've done is I've flipped it over upside down, and then I have the NAS here. And what I'm going to do is just take a grease pencil and I'm going to run it along the bottom edge here on both sides. And then what I get with that is I then get these 2 lines here, and I'm going to pick a spot along these lines and make some holes that the Velcro straps can route through so that I can route from top to bottom. So that's my next step, is to put some holes in this. A couple of things. When I put these corner holes in, I used a tap to put a small indentation in so my drill bit wouldn't walk. So I've got now my hole. I'm going to do a sort of similar thing here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill 2 holes, and one hole will be one side, one hole will be the other side, and then I'll use a Dremel to cross connect those. And I will intentionally pick the spacing of these to be enough that I can get the Dremel all the way in so that it's a fairly clean cut. So like I say, that's the next step. So I'm gonna go work on that. Okay, so not the best job I've ever done, but you'll see 2 holes and then Dremel cut between them. So there's 4 of those, so I can get 2 straps around the Synology. I also added one other piece. So I had a bit of rubber that I had bought previously, and so I made a mat that will fit down in the pan, and then I cut slits in it to match the holes. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the Synology in, and I'm going to get some straps on it, and then this should all be one unit. Okay, so this is what it looks like strapped down. So straps run through the rubber here, and they run underneath. Here, from there to there. Same on the other side. And then we're back up. Comes up here, and it loops through the buckle and then it's strapped. So this now I can pick this up either by the tray or the unit. You may notice that I did take off the front. I did that because we're going to also try and keep the drives pushed in a little bit further. We were going to initially do that with another strap horizontally in the middle. The problem with that is that if you look at the back of the unit, you'll see that there is a fan that really goes the entire length, and then right below that is our network connections and then power. So what we'll probably do is cover right in this region with a horizontal strap, so we're not impeding airflow that much. And we'll likely put a little bit of rubber along this front edge so that when the strap goes around, what we'll find is that the drives are actually being captive and they're being pushed in against their connector with just a little bit of force. So if there's a little bit of extra force that might try and separate the drives, we'll have a way to keep those in together. So that's my next step. Okay, so you'll notice that we're right above our LAN port. We're really mostly out of the way of the fan. You'll notice I also tucked this new one in underneath the existing straps, the two that hold it to the plate. I did that because I wanted the additional stability of holding that in place. Then there's just a little bit of rubber here. It's the same rubber that I used underneath, and I just put that on the front. So that gives this strap a little something to push against, and it's cinched over here. So now I have the unit cinched down to the tray. I have the drive carriers kind of pushed back in. There's not a ton of extra force because I don't want to break this sidebar. I don't want to put too much stress on the back plane or anything. But there's just a little bit of pressure, a little more than what these plastic clips provide. That'll hopefully keep things in check. So our next step and really the final step is to put this on springs. So connect the inner plate that we've been working on to the outer plate. Let's do that. Okay, had to make a small modification to the plan, and that was the springs that I had were not quite supporting the drive, so it wasn't actually floating like it's supposed to float. And so what we did is we put some additional spots here on each of the sides, one there and one there. And so this is actually what's providing primary support for the tray. There's two springs looped together, and each one of these here connects. So primary weight carried by these two springs, these two sets of springs. And then these corner springs then just do stabilization forwards and backwards and so forth. And so if you look at that, you're like, hey, that's still moving quite a bit and it's bouncing and so forth. But all of that motion is dampened motion. So what it's doing there is it's taking that initial shock and it's softening it all up. So this should give me a much more stable solution for in the camper. It'll be bouncing and floating, but it will be less impactful. It'll take shocks like that, right? And it will dampen them out. So there you go. There's a shock mount for a Synology 220 Plus, and it's based on relatively inexpensive materials, and we'll see how it works as I get it deployed.